Hello everyone, my name is Moji, and you're watching Bitcoin Bubble News Channel. Hi, this is Mark from Update. I believe we are all wondering the same thing at this very moment. When will this truly dull price action end? It has been 27 weeks since the all-time high. Going from 15,000 to 70,000 in such a short time makes sense. It makes sense for people to let some go here. But what's the next part of this wave? I think it will be the growth in M2, which is the amount of money in circulation around the world and in the US dollar. Because of that, will go up because the dollar is getting weaker. It's true that Japan's central banks work together to raise interest rates, right? Since interest rate cuts in the US are almost certain to happen in September, the dollar is being weakened on purpose. This is done to boost the economy, which causes asset prices to rise. In this video, let's look at that. You can really look at the pixels here and tell if this was a high or low. It was a high or low. That's how I was taught, so now I take the candlestick bodies. A lot of people may also look at the wicks, which are really just breaks in the price activity. I think that after this candle, when we had this big drop and then recovered for a green candle, the price went up over the next 2 weeks. If you want to look at pixels right there, I think that's just really strong price action. But I think it's a higher low. I don't want the light wicks though. I learned to stay with candlestick bodies. That's where the prices actually stopped moving. We're all going up a little bit now, but look, the price action is pretty dull right now. Don't do anything until the election is over. The market will then be able to price in, whose economic policy will really make things happen. Buy a bit. $30,000 deposit bonus is something you should look at if you trade. Make a deposit after clicking the link. You can get that deposit bonus if you are new. The more I learn about Bitcoin, the more I think that everything I learned in my first tests as an investor was either wrong or only true in the fiat currency system. So, if you look at how asset prices have changed over time in relation to how much money has been debased, you'll see that most investment returns are not really investment returns. They are only taking into account how much the denominator, in this case the dollar, has lost value. This is M2, which is the money quantity, and this is the CPI. It looks like they are linked. It stands to reason that if a certain amount of goods and services are being made and a lot more money is entering the market, then those goods and services should be priced differently to reflect the extra money. If the goods and services are worth the same amount but more money, then those things must be worth more and more money. In other words, the more you learn about Bitcoin, the more you must believe that it is the standard, right? No, it's not the dollar or any other virtual money. The ruler is a neutral piece of money that can't be changed in any way. That is the standard. When it comes to measuring things, it makes sense to use the pound because dollars and other fiat currencies aren't very accurate. It prints and takes them out, and there are more and less of them. What kind of gauge can that be at that value? It makes sense that as the money supply grows, the prices of assets will also grow. This is called inflation in goods and services. We've seen, though, that the stock market doesn't have much growth when you take out the Magnificent Seven in the business world. Profit margins are not too high and don't cause prices to go up. In reality, they're just pricing the loss of value of the currency. The money supply grows. When you look at business returns, you must first take away all of this money supply. Only then do you get the real returns. When you use USD to measure something, you have to debase it first. So everything has to be judged by how much the currency has lost value. But once more, that's not a sure thing. How much will the value of the coin drop every year? How many copies will be made? How much will be taken away? Again, nothing is known. That's not enough to run a machine, right? In other words, how can you use that to run your own bank or savings account? It's not possible. Will Bitcoin go up this time, though? Will the price of Bitcoin keep going up? No, it has nothing to do with Bitcoin. If you use dollars as your unit, the answer is yes. Why? Because they need to be put down. So everything gets better. Everything's price goes up because of inflation. If you use dollars to measure, the price of Bitcoin will also go up because there are 21 trillion USD in trade and 35 trillion USD in debt. This is what the debt-based system is meant to do. It will never be paid off. So the only thing it's meant to do is make more money. Pay off the old amounts of currency. The amount of M2 money in the US is 21 trillion. I want to say it again, this never goes down. The cost of living never goes down. The amount of money never goes down, right? For example, you can see that it's just one big number that keeps going up because you have to make more money to pay off the ones that are already there. This is basically the Bitcoin chart since it shows the price of Bitcoin in all of this. That's the size of the national debt, $35 trillion. This is how much money is in circulation: 21 trillion. Those don't seem to go together, do they? Since this is the case, there is a 100% chance that more money will be used over the next 10 years. That means that assets that can't lose value will price that in and go up in terms of fiat cash. It gets even stranger when you learn that most of the returns on investments we think of come from traditional assets, like real estate, which earns 7% a year. What about the Nasdaq? It might go up 18% a year, or the SP 12% a year. Most of that is weakening of the currency. Take a look at a picture of the SP over the last few years. It's just going up and up. It's not possible for those businesses to be generating that much real growth. The world economy isn't really growing at the moment. The world economy is moving very slowly. All of that price is just the value of the currency going down, which is crazy. So when you know it's devaluing money, which is about 80% to 90% of the trade, Bitcoin is that. Best investment to fight that. After that, you can make trades that might do better than BTC. Right now, BTC CAGR or RAR is about 40% a year, right? The minimum rate for any transaction is more than 40% a year, and the risk level must be the same or higher, which I can think of very few stocks that give us that, at least not big ones that you can trade in and out of all the time, right? It's so clear that this is the trade, right? We can use this to our advantage because these big banks aren't going to be able to react the same way we do and put in as much money as we can, right? I don't think that 1% or 2% share is the point. I think it's more than that. This shows how Bitcoin is being used. Looks like it will keep going, right? You can see that each cycle gets bigger. Now that presidential candidates are talking about it, that wasn't known 4 or 8 years ago. Now it's very clear that this is the debasement trade and how fast it's growing. These lines show how Bitcoin is being used. Net address count is shown by this green line. This kind of power curve for that right here. I don't think the trade is trying to pick these highs and lows. Do I understand this right? The move is to dollar cost average, get a good price, and then wait about 10 years. Well, after 2 or even 3 or 4 rounds, if Bitcoin is making about 15% or 12% a year, you might think of a bunch of other investments that might make more money each year, so you can take your money out of those. At 40% a year though, the risk reward on this right now is crazy. When measured in gold, the SP hasn't changed at all since the 1970s. This is very important because it shows that there isn't much real growth and that all the higher prices are just base rates. Since that's the case, just buy the thing that costs the most, which is BTC, which has the most upside growth, right? This is how much Bitcoin is worth in dollars. And of course it will go up in dollars because dollars are losing value, but Bitcoin is now the most important thing. This means that the rate of return is 40% on average, 30% per year, or 25% per year. I believe this is how the moving average will move, correct? That's between 250,000 and 300,000 in 2 rounds. Yes, it has nothing to do with what Bitcoin does. That's just the normal rate at which currencies lose value, and Bitcoin is a valuable asset that is spreading quickly. It is also getting more valuable if you compare it to gold. Why? The inflation rate for gold is 2%, but the inflation rate for Bitcoin is less than that right now. It's 0.9 and it's going to go down to 0 soon. Bitcoin also changes based on the amount of money in circulation, and the drop in that over time is called a bear market. And when M2 goes off, that's a bull market. Yet again,